So what you learn after building Magic decks for a while is there's a secret key to making a deck functional. And that key is having 8 of a certain effect. Like, look at a card like Heartless Summonings, a very, very powerful card, and a card you can build around really well, but decks focused around Heartless Summonings don't really work because there's only 4 Heartless Summonings in the game and there's no other effects that are really like it. So if you only have 4 copies of Heartless Summoning in your deck and you build your whole deck around Heartless Summonings, well, sometimes you just won't draw Heartless Summonings and your deck doesn't work. But when you get to 8 copies of an effect, all of a sudden you can pretty much guarantee that you're always going to be drawing that effect. Just statistically, you're almost certainly going to be drawing at least one of those copies in the top, 15 cards of your deck, so you'll pretty much always have it every single game. You even see this in deck names sometimes, like 8-Rack, a deck built around the card The Rack, that again didn't really work out until there were 8 copies of it. And once there are 8 copies of that effect, all of a sudden you can really build around this strategy of like making your opponent discard to do damage to them. And also 8-Whack is another deck in Modern that has 8 in the name specifically for this reason. Goblin Bushwhacker existed for a while, but there was only 1 copy of Goblin Bushwhacker, and once they printed another Bushwhacker that did the same thing basically, well, now suddenly you have 8 and you can consistently build around always having this effect in your hand. So in that same vein, we built around an effect that we basically have 8 copies of in Historic, and that's Elspeth Conquers Death. So because it's 8 copies of Elspeth Conquers Death that we have here, in the same vein as 8-Rack and 8-Whack, I'm lovingly calling this deck 8-Conq. So Elspeth Conquers Death is a saga, which means it comes into play, it does what it has listed as number 1, then on our next turn it does what it has listed as number 2, then number 3, and so on and so on. And then once it does its last ability, it sacrifices itself. And so to make a long story short, what Elspeth Conquers Death does is, on Chapter 1 it's removal, on Chapter 2 it taxes our opponent's resources, and on Chapter 3 it reanimates a creature or a planeswalker, and that or a planeswalker text is pretty important for what we're trying to do. And we also have the Eldest Reborn, a saga from way back in Dominaria that basically does the same thing. Chapter 1, removal. Chapter 2 taxes our opponent's resources by making them discard a card, and then Chapter 3 we get to reanimate either a creature or a planeswalker. So with 8 copies of this sort of effect, this removal, disruption, reanimate effect, we can really build around it, and the way we've done that is sort of a graveyard-based Super Friends deck. So we have Liliana, Waker of the Dead, which is probably our most key planeswalker. She's just really powerful, 4 mana, she can tick up to 5, make our opponent discard a card. We discard a card too, but we can discard a planeswalker we want to reanimate anyway, or we can get ourselves empty-handed and then we'll just be making our opponent discard, and even if they don't have anything to discard, she's just dinging them so she can be a finisher. But most importantly is her -3 ability, which gives target creature -X until end of turn, where X is the number of cards in our graveyard. So because of our reanimation effects, we already want to be filling up our graveyard with a bunch of stuff. So filling up our graveyard, also turbocharging our Liliana's removal, means that she can -3 to usually kill anything. She even kills stuff like Uros, even kills stuff like Ulamogs, eventually Liliana can kill just about anything. And we just have a lot of ways to fill up our graveyard. Cards like Ashiok, which is another planeswalker we can reanimate, and also just so happens to sometimes just beat decks by itself if they're graveyard based. Like Ashiok just kind of hilariously hoses like Uro decks or the red-black graveyard based decks that are kind of running around right now, because it can just exile our opponent's graveyard, but also it mills ourselves, so we can fill up our graveyard, power up our Lilianas, get stuff to reanimate with our Elspeth Conquers Deaths. We also have 1 copy of Teferi, Master of Time, which is a good thing to reanimate and also gives us a looting ability, so we can like loot planeswalkers into the graveyard and get them back with our Elspeth Conquers Deaths. We also have Discovery, which lets us surveil 2, which means look at the top 2 cards of our deck and choose to either put them in our graveyard or back on top of our deck, and then also draw a card. So Discovery by itself can put 3 cards into our graveyard, can put planeswalkers to our graveyard. It has Dispersal on its back half too, so it can be a removal spell in a pinch, but really it's just to sort of dig us to our key pieces like our Lilianas and our Conqs, while also filling up our graveyard. And another really key card in our deck is Narset, Parter of Veils. And I think the fact that Narset works so well with our game plan makes our deck actually really, really competitive, because Narset just like really messes up a lot of the field right now. A lot of the decks in Historic are built around Uro, or are built around Explore, effects that just kind of don't really work right if you're not able to draw additional cards. So if we can land like a turn 3 Narset, it can really mess up a lot of decks. And Narset's minus ability also just digs us to like everything important in our deck. It goes and grabs any non-creature spell, so pretty much anything in our deck it can go grab that's not a land. It can go grab all of our Conqs, all of our Planeswalkers, all of our board wipes like Shadow of the Sky and Wrath of God. It can grab our Heartless Axe, our removal spells, and our Mind Stones, which we're using for a little bit of ramp. So Narset just grabs anything we really need at the moment, and it can really just mess up some decks by itself. And it's also just a good thing to reanimate with like Elspeth Conquers Death, because if we reanimate it with Elspeth Conquers Death, it even comes in with an additional counter, so we can minus her 3 times, get to draw 3 cards off of her. So really good stuff. We're also running 1 copy of Mu Yang Ling, which is better against aggressive decks, can kind of shut down a threat or two, and eventually starts pumping out birds. Really, Mu Yang Ling is just a good finisher. We do have like Lilianas and Elspeths to kind of finish the game, but Mu Yang Ling can really just start pumping out birds, these big 4/4 flyers that we can just really pressure our opponent quickly and take them out of the game. And then our last Planeswalker is Elspeth Sun's Nemesis, who fits fantastically in this deck, so she really hasn't gotten a good shake pretty much anywhere. Like, there was a lot of hype for Elspeth when she came out, but she just hasn't really fit in anywhere. But in our deck in specific, we're milling ourselves, so we're getting her in the graveyard so she can escape herself back, or we can just reanimate her like any other Planeswalker. So she gains some life, she makes some tokens, she's a finisher, and after we fill up our graveyard a bunch, we can just keep getting her back over and over and over again. It can really be backbreaking against a lot of opponents. And lastly, we have 2 copies of Yorion the Sky Nomad. So Yorion is something we can reanimate back because our Conqs, again, they grab Planeswalkers, but they can also grab creatures, so we can just like grab a Yorion out of the graveyard. But more importantly, Yorion can come down and blink our Elspeth Conquers Death, blink our Eldest Reborn, let us get those removal abilities when they come back into play, because they'll come back into play back on Chapter 1 and start ticking down again. It can also blink our Planeswalkers, so if we like minus our Liliana to kill something, we can then play our Yorion, exile our Liliana, bring her back, and she'll come back with full loyalty counters. And we can also do stuff like blink our Mind Stones to untap them, so we can do something on our opponent's turn too. So there's a lot of little tricks we can do with Yorion, but basically it comes into play and like resets the counters on all of our permanents, is why we're running it. In our mana base, we just got a lot of shock lands. We got some of the Triomes just because they cycle in our all land types. So they help with stuff like Drowned Catacombs and Glacial Fortress come into play untapped. In our sideboard, we got 2 copies of Thoughtseize, pretty good against control decks, combo decks, anything where we need to like pick a particular thing out of our opponent's hand. Aether Gust, good against Gruul, good against, you know, mono green Stompy, maybe good against mono red, although if it's just straight up red burn, I probably wouldn't bring it in. Heartless Act, just 2 more copies, so we can go up to 4 copies if we want to. Just one of the better removal spells in the format. Liliana's Triumph, this is kind of a hedge against the blue-white Auras deck. That's more of a best of 1 deck, but sometimes it does show up in best of 3, and having a way that we can just make them sacrifice their big creature if we're not able to kill it is something. Still, that is going to be kind of a rough matchup, but because we're built around Liliana and we have a lot of ways to reanimate our Liliana, we can a lot of times get off both halves of this ability as well, which is pretty nice. Mystical Dispute against any blue deck, mostly control, just being able to, you know, sneak in one of our Eldest Reborns, leaving up 1 blue mana and countering their counter spell for it, can win us the game a lot of the times. Cry the Carnarium against mono red, any sort of little dorky creature deck that we can you know, wipe the board quickly with that. Kaya Orzhov Usurper is graveyard hate and also can go after 1-drops. Typically we want to bring this in against graveyard hate though. In specific against the red-black graveyard-based decks that are kind of running around with Young Pyromancers and such. Kaya, I think, is really good against those. And then 1 more copy of Shadow the Sky just to give us 1 more sweeper. If you got Wrath of Gods, just run those instead of Shadow the Sky. I just happen to have a bunch of copies of Shadow the Sky and 1 copy of Wrath of God. And I really didn't feel like spending the wild cards, so it's not that big of a difference, you know, Shadow the Sky versus Wrath of God. So I'm running 3 copies of Shadow the Sky, but if you've got all 4 copies of Wrath of God, just run 3 in the main deck and 1 in the sideboard, and it's kind of strictly better than Shadow the Sky in most cases. So anyway, that's going to wrap up the deck tech. We'll jump into the gameplay here in a second. We'll have a wrap up at the end of the video. But yeah, this is just sort of a graveyard-based Super Friends deck. If you like Super Friends, if you like reanimation, if you just like all of your permanents basically being removal plus threats, which is kind of what our deck is, it's really nice, and yeah, should be fun. I also want to say I intentionally excluded some of the more commonly played Planeswalkers here. It might be correct to go like Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, you know, it's in our colors, but yeah, I think we're all kind of tired of those, so I wanted to kind of stay on theme and give a chance for some of these graveyard-based Planeswalkers that don't see quite as much play as like Teferis and stuff to get to see some action. So Narset obviously is the exclusion of that. Narset sees tons of play, but she's good, you know what? we're the baddies this week. So anyway, let's hop into the games. We'll have a wrap-up at the end, and yeah, on to game 1. And yeah, this seems fine. We've got a way to fill up our graveyard to power up our Liliana, Heartless Act to keep us alive if we're against a more aggressive deck. So all in all, it seems pretty good. We even got the double black sources for Liliana. Alright, so we may need to deploy this Heartless Act. I think we can take 1 turn here at least to Discovery. Maybe we Heartless Act next turn. Yeah, we'll just put both these in the graveyard. We're planning on curbing a Heartless Act into a Liliana if we can, taking down Liliana to kill something else, so... Scavenging Ooze. Well, we gotta kill the Skoos, because that's gonna eat up our graveyard. Let's just do it now, so they can't put a counter on it in response. So kill that, and play our land tapped, pass a turn. So we have enough stuff in our graveyard to kill this Pelt Collector, potentially, but if they play another threat... Okay, well, we're going to go for it. Liliana. Minus our Liliana. Kill their Pelt Collector. Alright, so we've dealt with a couple of their threats. If they just questing beast us here... Okay, wow. Okay, so we just answered, and that was it. Our opponent said, okay, you know what? I don't feel like playing this out. So we could... I think we're going to go up to Ether Gust... Deals with basically everything in their deck, and maybe another Shatter the Sky. I don't think we're going to go up Cry the Granarium, because they can just outgrow that pretty quickly. Kaya's kind of interesting, because we can eat their 1-drops no matter how big they get, but they don't really do anything with their graveyard, so I think we'll hold off on the Kaya. And Heartless Act, all their stuff gets counters on it, like at least everything we've seen, so it is a little limited. I don't know if we want to go up those either. Maybe just the Ether Gust and leave the 2 Heartless Acts we have, and just go up that other Wrath as an additional piece of removal, and then we can go down... They do have a lot of dorks, so maybe go down at 1 Eldest Reborn, go down 1 of our Ashioks, go down maybe one of our Discoveries and run it like that. Alright, game 2 against Spells. I kind of want to keep this. We have the Irrigated Farmland to cycle on turn 2. Alright, we'll keep this. This might just be too slow. We might just get run over. Totally possible. Shadow the Sky makes me feel better about it. If we could draw a Mind Stone off the top here, so we could go turn 2 Mind Stone, turn 3 Shadow the Sky, then I'd feel really good about it, but... Well, double Shadow the Sky, okay. So we'll go Isolated Chapel, plan on just cycling this Irrigated Farmlands. Fake our opponent out into thinking we might have a removal spell. Earthshaker Kinra, okay. Gonna get in for 4 here. Unfortunately, we're not gonna be able to really deal with these this turn. Maybe we can draw into like a Heartless Act. Other lands. Ugh. Okay. We'll go, yeah, Glacial Fortress. Pass turn. We can Shatter the Sky next turn, but we're taking at least 4 here. Potentially more if they have a hasty threat, if they have a questing beast or anything else. A lot of the threats in these decks have haste, like a Gruul Spellbreaker. Well, the one good thing is, without having 4 power, they don't get to draw a card here, so we do get to just go Shadow the Sky, eat their board, give them nothing for it. But if they just go Questing Beast here, it's pretty rough. Really, the problem is, they got so many hasty threats. Okay. Sure. Okay, Heartless... Yeah, we actually kind of drew pretty well here, so we're just going to Elspeth Conquers Death. Get that ticking down, and we can even, you know, play our Yorion, blink our Elspeth Conquers Death, and eat their Lovestruck Beast. Well, okay, they're just going to collect company main phase, because again, a lot of their threats have haste. So maybe they aren't running Questing Beast in this deck. Ooh! Galley is pretty good. Yeah, okay, Ether Gust. Wow, okay, that's a pretty good draw. I think we just... We're not going to be able to get a reanimation off of this Elspeth Conquers Death regardless, so I guess we just Shatter the Sky here. Blow up our opponent's board, and try to Ether Gust whatever they play next. Hopefully they try to get back the Earthshaker Kinra. Alright, just going to run out the the Lovestruck Beast. And a Scooze. Okay. I think we just Heartless Act the Lovestruck Beast. Okay, Discovery's not bad. Okay, we're gonna Ether Gust the Scavenging Ooze. Opponent's gonna gain a little bit of life on their way out, sure. Okay, they put it back on top. Then we will Discovery. Graveyard. Wrath of God. Okay, so now we can get the Scooze off the battlefield. This Kinra is pretty scary, though. It's just waiting in the wings, and it does have a lot of power. Okay, and they just run out the Bone Crusher Giant, sure. Okay. Wrath of God. Opponent gets to eat something, again, on its way out. But they can go Earthshaker Kinra, hit us down to 2, and then we can Eldest Reborn to eat their Earthshaker Kinra, and they'll be completely out of resources at that point. Here he comes. Here comes the boy. So hit us down to 2. Drawing some life gain would be pretty nice. Yeah, we'll get rid of the Earthshaker Kinra. Here it is. Do they draw a hasty threat? There's a lot of things in their deck that just kill us. Okay, Lovestruck Beast isn't one of those. We're okay with this. Yeah, what we're going to do is play Yorion. This way, what they're going to do is sacrifice the 1/1, but that means they can't attack with a Lovestruck Beast, because they no longer have a 1/1 body. And if they do top deck a 1/1 or something here, we can block and then still get the Yorion back with the Eldest Reborn. Okay, that was a pretty good draw. So we're going to go Elspeth Sun's Nemesis. Narset Parter Veils. Take our Liliana. Make... I think we're just going to gain 5 life, because we're dead to a Stomp, is the really scary thing. No tax. Okay, an opponent scoops it up. Alright, so we just sort of removal spelled our opponent out of the game that time. We just, through enough Wraths and enough enough Conqs, we were just sort of able to whittle our way through our opponent's creatures until they just didn't have much left to work with. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of what this deck wants to do, right? The whole idea is we have these things that are huge threats that also are removal spells, and 8 copies of that from Eldest Reborn and Elspeth Conquers Death. So, yeah, this is pretty much our deck in a nutshell, and I do think this is probably one of our better matchups because it is more of a mid-rangey, you know, they're using like Collected Company to get a bunch of bodies on the board. So it's really kind of susceptible to Wrath of Gods, whereas something like Mono Red Aggro sometimes can kind of get underneath us before we get our answers online. They can just hit us low enough that they can burn us out or whatever. But yeah, I think this is one of our better matchups. Once we got out of that danger zone, we were, you know, there was no real way they could come back after that. So anyway, sweet. Alright, playing some 8 Conq against Koshlyin. Yeah, we'll keep this. We've got turn 2 Discovery, hopefully to find us more lands. And setting up our graveyard with Discovery for this Liliana seems really nice, so... Pass turn. If we happen to be against a graveyard-based deck too, we just kind of get to auto-win with Ashiok. Ooh, I think we are gonna... We could try to ramp and just hope we draw a land next turn, but we were going to be drawing a Liliana, so... We'll make sure we hit our land drops here. Next turn we'll have to think about if we want to... Oh, okay. Opponent might be on a blink deck of some kind, or... I'm not really sure. I guess we play Narset. Minus Narset. Take the Wrath of God. So, shutting down their card draw seems pretty good. 3 mana. Okay. Oh my gosh, well... We didn't shut down their card draw. Captain Lannery Storm. I don't know what our opponent's doing exactly. Okay, here we can just Wrath, potentially. We could also play our Liliana. I think we need to... I mean, we don't really care about the Fibblethip, so what I think we're going to do is play Mind Stone and just Heartless Act this Captain Lannery Storm. Oops, that's not the land. And just Heartless Act this Captain Lannery Storm before they get to attack with it. Yeah, we will Heartless Act Lannery Storm. Opponent gets in with Fibblethip. What do they got for 5 mana? I really have no idea what this deck's doing, so could be anything. Another Fibblethip, sure. It could be some Mox Opal, or Mox whatever deck, the legendary one. So here what we'll do is go like this. Play our Mind Stone. Play Liliana. Start ticking up our Liliana. Tick up. We'll just discard Ashiok. We haven't seen anything to indicate they use their graveyard. If they are a Mox Amber deck, then maybe they do use their graveyard, but we haven't seen that. I mean, all the legendaries is the only reason I think that it might be that, but it could be, I don't know. Maybe a historic deck, I'm not sure.
You've stained my gown.
Gideon of the Trial. Oh, is this just getting the Trials plus a bunch of, like, take extra turn effects? I think it is. Uh-oh. So I think we will... Jeez, okay. I think we're going to kill Fibblethip here. And I think we're going to go Dispersal. Make our opponent return their Gideon back to their hand so they can't attack with it next turn. Yeah, so I think our opponent's deck is basically... I've seen stuff like this before where they're running Pact of Negation, running Final whatever, the one that lets you take an extra turn but you lose at the end of that extra turn. But if you have a Gideon on the battlefield with his emblem, then you don't lose because you can't lose as long as you have a Gideon. Oh, Elspeth Conquers Death is good. So we will make our player discard a card, discard our Wrath, and Elspeth Conquers Death. Eat the Gideon. You know what? Maybe it is just a historic deck. They're running Wrath Compassion. So, running a Wrath Compassion makes me think they're just playing a bunch of historic stuff, a bunch of legends, artifacts, planeswalkers, that sort of thing. I don't know. Our opponent's on something spicy. I guess we are too, so it's the battle of spicy stuff. Battle of weird brews, I suppose. That's always fun. Kefnet. Jeez, okay. I guess we'll tick up. Everybody discards a card. And then we will Yorion. Blink all these. And opponent scoops it up. Alright. They did not want to keep playing after that. So, and our opponent had a Niv Mizzet too, so I don't know. I have no idea what our opponent's doing. Jeskai Legends, I guess. Jeskai Historic. For that, I guess we'll go up to Aether Gust. Seems okay. I guess maybe Mystical Dispute as well, although Mystical Dispute can't counter their Niv Mizzets, which is concerning. Could also go up to Liliana's Triumph. It's hard to say. I don't know exactly what we want to do here. I think we go up to the Aether Gust and maybe the Liliana's Triumph, and maybe go down... Maybe one of the Shadow the Skies, go down one of the Heartless Acts, and go down one of the Ashioks and run it like that. Alright, game 2 against Koshlein, and yeah, we'll keep this. Okay, we'll play our Sagoth Triome. Set ourselves up for a turn 3 Narset. Do have this Aether Gust to deal with some of our opponent's problematic stuff, but... yeah, I guess we just go... Just in case there's something we want to Aether Gust, we'll do Isolated Chapel this turn. Kira, okay. Well, I guess we go... Hollowed Fountain, untapped. Narset. Minus our Narset. Take a Heartless Act. Next turn we can potentially Wrath if we draw an untapped land, and if not, we can like Liliana's Triumph to get rid of this Kira.
You could use some training.
No Wrath, okay. So we'll go and Dot the Dryome tapped. Pass the turn. We're gonna wait for our opponent to tap out to do this Liliana's Triumph. Wrath Compassion. Alright, we do just want to get rid of the Kira while we can. Here comes the Wrath. Alright, so Wrath is going to kill our Narset. Maybe Aether Gust wasn't a great idea. It looks like they're primarily blue-white, splashing some red for like Niv Mizzet, I guess. I am worried about... Niv Mizzet is something that's pretty difficult for us to beat. We can kill it with like a Liliana tick down, but once they resolve a Niv Mizzet, it gets pretty scary pretty quick. Baron, okay. Blinks their Wrath, which lets them draw a card. Okay, not bad. We do get to go... Then we're just going to go Liliana minus the Liliana on Baron. Play Watery Grave tapped. Pass the turn. Opponent can flash in their Wrath to attack. Okay, Lannery Storm. Lannery Storm has got us a couple times now. And a Thip, sure. Draws a card. Aether Gust. Huh. So we could just Wrath here. I want to resolve this Elspeth, but it can get pretty hairy. I guess we'll do the Elspeth. Play Elspeth minus Elspeth. Make some 1/1s. Pass a turn. Next turn we can do the same thing and then Yorion to blink our Elspeth. Get all its counters back. Or if we need to, we can remove some stuff. Okay, it's a fairy hero, Dominaria, sure. They minus on our Elspeth, okay. Yeah, these Aether Gusts are feeling worse and worse. I guess we go... Mind Stone. Heartless Act the Captain Lannery Storm. And kill our opponent's Teferi. Pass the turn with an Ether Gust up. Oh my god. Another Teferi, huh? Oof. Alright. We would like to draw one of our Conqs. Yeah, opponent taps 2. Well, that's not a Conq. Yeah, I guess we just run out Yorion to start attacking this Teferi. I think I'm actually going to draw a card. Play this Elspeth. See if it gets countered. Opponent did have the negate. Alright. Well, we can get Elspeth back out of the graveyard next turn, so I think we attack our opponent's Teferis here. They trade in a Thibblethip, sure. We knock it down to 4. Next turn we can get our Elspeth back out of the graveyard. Yeah, we have enough cards to exile. Karn's Temple. Okay, well, they get to take an extra turn with their Teferi, which isn't good. Yeah, our opponent's deck is a little bit different than it looked in game 1 for sure. I don't know if they sideboarded or if they just we didn't just see a lot of these pieces in game 1. I think we mis-sideboarded a bit though. These Ether Gusts, it seems like maybe Niv-Mizzet is their only real good target to hit with Ether Gust. Alright, Ravcapation. That has Flash. They didn't need to do that right now, but I guess they wanted to do it before we potentially untap our... So we could Eldest Reborn to eat the Wrath. I guess we do that. Eldest Reborn. Does our opponent have a counter? Alright. We're gonna scoop it up. We can't, we're not gonna win against a Teferi Ultimate, so we'll scoop it up there. Our opponent had the counter. So our opponent is much more of a control deck than they look like. So we'll go up the Thought Seizes, go down... definitely the Ether Gusts did not perform well. Go up the Mystical Disputes, and Liliana's Triumph seemed okay. They have stuff like Cure the Glass Spinner that we want to sacrifice out of their deck. So maybe we go down like a Eldest Reborn, maybe a couple Eldest Reborns, go down to 6 Conqs, and try it like that. You just have a lot of little dorks to sacrifice, like Thibblethip and such, so Eldest Reborn gets a little bit worse. We'll play first. Ugh. Well, we do have turn 1 Thoughtseize, but literally nothing else. Okay, we will keep this. Go down... I guess Elspeth. Play Irrigated Farmland, tapped. We can Discovery next turn to try to hit our land drops. Yep, and that's what we're going to do. Discovery, like a black source. Ashiok. Put Ashiok in the graveyard. We'll put them both in the graveyard. Not really what we want right now. There you go, black source. Thibblethip, sure. Ooh, Liliana's pretty good. We could just run out Narset here and it probably gets killed, but still think it's worth it. Play Narset. If they don't have a hasty threat, then this is pretty good against them. We'll take the Elspeth. And it still draws us a card regardless. So, not too bad, all things considered. Alright, do you have the hasty threat? Okay, they didn't have the hasty threat. That's not bad. Okay, I think we just... They could have counter spells here. Are we that upset if they counter our Elspeth, though? Yeah, I think we're gonna Discovery Dispersal and leave up our Mystical Dispute. Thoughtseize plus Eldest Reborn. We'll go down to Eldest Reborn. Keep the Thoughtseize. We can Thoughtseize plus Mystical Dispute. So Thoughtseize our opponent. I imagine this draws out Niambi. Okay. We're okay with that. We're gonna hold on to our Mystical Dispute for something a little more problematic than Niambi. We'll go down... Let's see. All of these are pretty annoying. Karn's Temporal Sundering's pretty good. I guess we take... Our opponent's likely to play Kira next turn, or maybe Ravcapation. I think we're going to take the Ravcapation, because anything else they play next turn, we can just use Mystical Dispute to stop it. So we'll go ahead and cash in our Narset, because they're going to be able to kill with Niambi anyway. Okay, Thoughtseize seems pretty good. We would like a black source here, for sure. Okay, opponent just passes. We know they don't have anything to cast, though. Interesting. I guess they're just going to draw some cards from the Ambi. That's fine. So we will play Liliana. And we'll just kill the Niambi. Stop them from drawing any more cards. Opponent's going to discard, I guess. Okay, Thip and draw a couple cards, sure. Pass turn. If it's God Eternal Kefnet, okay, yeah, we are definitely countering Teferi. No. I don't think so. Okay, we're gonna go Thought Seize our opponent. I think God Eternal Kefnet. Yeah, we'll take the God Eternal Kefnet. Everything else we can Wrath away. Then tick up our Liliana. Discard a Godless Shrine. Play Elspeth. Make some tokens. Alright. And our opponent is probably going to play Lyra this turn. Yeah. And we can just Wrath the Lyra away. Ooh, even better. Eldest Reborn. Opponent sacks the Lyra. Yeah, I think we just put the pressure on our opponent here.
You are braver than you know.
We're actually not gonna tick down this or tick up this Liliana because we want this Wrath to deal with the next Lyra. If we can keep them from having legendary creatures, then we are in pretty good shape. Opponent discards a card. We will Wrath them again. Play the Zagoth Triome. Now we make them discard. Make some tokens. We can recast our Elspeth next turn, and yeah, things are looking pretty good. We can even steal one of our opponent's powerful legends. Okay, well, Ugin's probably going to mean we don't get that reanimate. Yeah. Well, we can at least kill the Ugin. And we can recast the... Well, we'll play the Endotha Triome. Recast the Elspeth out of our graveyard. So, yeah, just exile a bunch of whatever. Non-planeswalkers. We will make some more tokens. Discard. Steal the last card out of our opponent's hand. Kill the Ugin, hit our opponent in the face. Alright, we got a pretty fast clock with this Elspeth. We can -1 it to give two of our creatures +2/+1. Alright, well Ashiok does eat away our graveyard. We might just ignore it though, because I think we got him... Let's see, so if we ignore the Ashiok... Oh, that's pretty good. So if we ignore the Ashiok, we've got 1, 2, 8. Yeah, we can kill him in 2 turns, so we're just going to ignore the Ashiok, I guess. Hit our opponent. We're not going to be able to tick up the... I guess we can just go play the Yorion and only blink the Elspeth. And then we can still tick up the Liliana, drain our opponent for 3. Alright. What you got, opponent? Can you deal with all this? Alright, and they can't. Good game. Okay. So up against a pretty spicy brew from our opponent. It was kind of similar to our decks in some way, where it's running just a bunch of like planeswalkers and stuff, but instead of going on our 8 Conq plan, they went on the historic plan, which is kind of cool. Wrath Compassion is a really cool card. It gives all historic spells flash, so it means you can like flash in stuff like Lyra Dawnbringer or even Karn's Temporal Sundering, because this is a legendary spell. Even though it's not a permanent, it's still historic because it's legendary. So it's a pretty cool deck idea from our opponent, like all their creatures being legendary and having like Niambi as a card draw engine in a deck like this. So yeah, I really liked our opponent's deck, but I think the fact that all of our finishers were also removable made us pretty good against this deck, so sweet. Okay, playing some 8 Conq against Thick Boy. Umori makes me think they're a Goblins deck. Okay, they're not a Goblins deck. Maybe it's a Mutate deck. Interesting. We might want to cycle this Zagoth Triome. I guess we do have, like... We don't have a second blue source, so I'll go ahead and just play this Zagoth Triome. If this was, like, a Hollowed Fountain or something, I think we hold on to it to cycle. Oh, okay. So it is a Fish People deck. We're just gonna blow up that Deep Root lead while we can. That card, really, it's because it shuts off our Heartless Act is why we went after it. We would rather wait to Wrath their board instead of spending removal where we don't really need to. Mirror Ragery, all right. So they are gonna get to They're going to get to kind of do their thing on this turn. Mirror Reedry is really good with like 1-drop Merfolk because it makes them cost 0 mana. We'll take the Liliana. Liliana seems pretty good. Liliana is sort of like the planeswalker we're built around because we are filling up our graveyard anyway for our Conqs. So having a Liliana on top of all that seems pretty good. We are just going to Wrath here. Ooh. So, opponent does get to kill our Narset. Pretty good. Alright. And they get to run this out for 0 mana. See, this is the trick with Mirror Reedry where you can untap your land. So, oh, and well, we're actually happy about this because we have the Shadow of the Sky waiting in the wings, but normally this would be a really good turn for them. Like, look at this. They played, what, 6 mana worth of Merfolk for 2 mana here. Kind of ridiculous. Unfortunately for them, boom, we got the Shadow of the Sky. And that is going to be hard to come back from. Not impossible. I mean, Merfolk does have some card draw that can maybe dig them out of this. Kumena is that card draw. Unluckily for them also, though, let me make sure we got... Oh, we actually don't have enough in the graveyard right now to deal with the Kumena. So we're going to Discovery, fill up our graveyard. We'll just put both in the graveyard. Narset, go digging.
If you wish to surrender now, keep an open mind.
We'll take the just take the Wrath of God. Just kind of put the nail in the coffin. I don't think they can come back at this point. Second Wrath of God is pretty good here when they're sitting on 0 mana. Alright, they get to kill our Narset again. Okay, yeah, we are just gonna Wrath. We could Liliana here, but it would just die to whichever Merfolk we didn't kill. So we'll just do this, play Godless Shrine tapped, and hopefully our opponent's out of action, or at the very least they can only deploy 1 threat. And if they only play 1 creature here, we can just eat it with a Liliana, and then they're pretty hard locked, because if they play stuff, we get to kill it, and if they don't play stuff, we get to make them discard it. So yeah, we'll just play the Liliana. Start closing this game out. And opponent scoops it up. Yeah, they couldn't... Liliana is so good at kind of just closing things. Like, once you kind of have stabilized, if you get a Liliana on the board, your opponent just is stuck between, like, hell and high water. They really can't do much of anything. So, our opponent is on Merfolk. I don't know about bringing in the Cry the Canarium, because they can kind of outgrow it pretty quickly. With all their +1/+1 counters. For the same reason Heartless Act isn't super fantastic. Definitely bring in the other Wrath. We could bring up the Ether Gust to attack their creatures. I guess that's fine. So I guess we'll go up a couple of the Ether Gusts and the Wrath, and maybe we'll think about bringing in some other Heartless Acts. Like, if we can catch them early with a Heartless Axe, they're good, but the problem is you could see they just got like +1/+1 counters on all of their creatures eventually, so it does have its limits. And even Kaya is kind of interesting because they do have a lot of 1-drops, but I think we want Kaya when the graveyard matters more than 1-drops. So we'll go down maybe 1 Eldest Reborn because they do have a lot of little dudes to just throw away to it. 1 Ashiok, and yeah, 1 of the Discoveries. Run it like that. Okay, game 2 against Thick Boy, and we will keep it. We might just cycle this Indotha Triome. Huh. Yeah. We'll plan on cycling the Indotha Triome, I think. We're not going to play it right now. We have a pretty good curve even without playing it, so... Okay, Deep Root Elite's kind of scary. We're going to be discovering our way into some Wraths, hopefully. Graveyard. Elspeth in the graveyard's pretty good. Irrigated farmland, uh-oh. Well, we can just run out Narset and try to... Oh man, yeah, our opponent has got a lot of damage on the board. We might be a little too slow here. Yeah. Hits us for 7. Yeah, and even if we do get a Wrath, I think we're just too slow. Let's see. So if we Narset, they hit us for 7. Yeah, we're just dead. Alright. Yeah, we'll just scoop it up. Alright. So we were just a little too slow. Our opponent went off there, and we just didn't have any way to interact until, like, turn 4, and that's just not fast enough. So maybe we have to go up the Heartless Axe. Maybe going up a couple the Heartless Axe and going down 1 more Eldest Reborn and Maybe the other Ashiok as well. We are cutting pretty significantly into our Planeswalkers, which we do need a critical mass of to get back with our Conqs. But we also cut a couple of our Conqs, so hopefully that equals out just as fine. I mean, at the end of the day, we only need one thing in the graveyard to reanimate, so let's try it like this, see if this works a little better. Alright, we will play first, and okay, we do have the Heartless Act, so we've got interaction this time instead of just stone cold nothing. Maybe I just shouldn't have kept that hand we kept last time. Maybe having no interaction in the early game was just a reason to mulligan. Something to consider. Because really, we didn't have anything to do until Narset, and then even then, Narset doesn't actually do anything, right? Narset kind of draws his cards and stuff, but it doesn't affect the board. So yeah, maybe it was just a mistake to keep that previous hand. But this one we do have something to do on turn 2, and hopefully if we draw one more land, Narset can draw us into more ways to answer what our opponent's trying to do. Opponent's thinking hard about keeping this hand though. Thick boy with his fish boys. I guess he's got to consider, what if we have the Wrath on turn 4? And now that we're on the play, turn 4 Wrath is a lot more devastating than it was being on the draw. Like, you know, by the time we turn 4 Wrath, our opponent has already had all 4 turns, right, to potentially kill us. But now they're only going to have 3 turns before we potentially go to a turn 4 Wrath. So they have to consider, you know, if that happens, is it just game over? What do I do, you know? So they're probably looking at this hand now and considering if it's possible to recover from that, or if it's does enough damage that that's worth it, or whatever. But they are thinking hard about it. Alright, they decide to keep. We will play Hallowed Fountain, tapped, pass turn. So Discovery would be a good draw. Okay, Benthic Biomancer, sure. Well, it's not really what we had in mind. Pass turn. Silvergill Adept, sure. I think we'll kill the Silvergill Adept. Even though they can grow this Benthic Biomancer to draw a card, if that's whatever. I think we just want to get as much power off the board as possible to stabilize. We would love to draw a land here. And by love to, I mean we probably die if we don't. Alright. Well. Okay. That's not really what we wanted, but I suppose if they do just go to put a bunch of counters on this Benthic Biomancer, we can kill it in response, so that's something. But we need to draw lands badly. Maybe this is another hand we should have mulliganed. Maybe double 5 drops with only 2 lands was not a smart keep. It's possible. Marrow Reedry. Yeah, we're going to have to just kill that right now. Destroy the Marrow Reedry. Stop them from having an explosive turn. Opponent hits us for 1. Come on. Alright. Not good. Well, eesh. Hoisted by our own petard, I guess. We got all these nice big 5 drops, but kept the 2-lander. And we didn't keep a 2-lander with card draw too, so maybe it was a mistake to go down the 1 copy of the Discovery, because, you know, we went down the copy of Discovery for Ether Gust here, and having Discovery right now to, you know, mill our way into some lands would be really good, but Alright, opponent Vine Shaper Mystics pumps up their Biomancer. Sure. They get to loot. We aren't going to Ether Gust the Vine Shaper Mystic because we don't want to give them that ETB again. Although maybe... You know what? We're going to do it. Even though this does give them another ETB, we're going to do it because we want to have... Oh, okay, they're just going to Missile Dispute it. Alright. Well, okay. You know, there is some argument we should have kept the hand we did, but also only finding 2 lands in the top 11 cards of our deck is, you know, we're roughly, you know, 40 to 50% chance to draw a land every turn for the last few turns, and we've just managed to draw absolutely 0, like 5 or 6 turns in a row. Not much you can do about that. Well, there's a Mind Stone. Okay. I guess theoretically we can top deck an untapped white source here and blow up the board, but we're going to be at almost no life at that point, and they might just have a stead here depending on what exactly they've got. Yeah. Down to 4. Okay, that is an untapped White Source. Does our opponent have a counter spell? Let's find out. Ugh. Don't Mystical Dispute us, bro. Please. Don't do it. They're thinking about it. No, come on. Ugh. They gotta have something, right? Because they're holding the clock here, and Kumena would only do that if there was an untapped Merfolk, I think. So they've got to have something to do in response. Okay, yeah. Okay, well, that would have saved us, but... Alright, so just not hitting a land for... Gosh, who knows how many draws there. Let's see if we can count. So if we look at how many cards we had in our deck, so we started out with 7, so that would leave us with 53, and then it took us until this turn to draw a land, so we didn't draw a land for 6 turns. Yeah, that's kind of rough. Not drawing our 3rd land for 6 turns. You know, if that Wrath had resolved, we could follow it up with a Liliana to snipe their next creature, and then our Conqs to handle things from there. But yeah, just 2 lands for 6 turns is pretty brutal. Oof. All right. Well, on to the next one. Okay, up against La Talpa with 8 Conq. And okay, we've got some Narset to draw us cards. We've got some Mind Stone to ramp us into our Conqs, so that's kind of where we want to be. Yeah, we'll hold on to this Irrigated Farmland. We might want to cycle it. Potentially. Yeah, well, now we've got 2 of them, so kind of wish I had played the other one now. But we can, well, I guess I kind of did that wrong. I should have played the Watery Grave there, because then we could have played Narset next turn and also played one of these tap lands without issue. Yeah, I did that wrong. Well, we will go Narset. We'll get a Liliana. We can do that next turn. Potential. Okay, well, opponent scoops it up. Don't have any idea what they're doing. They're Jeskai's something. I guess we'll bring in the Thoughtseizes. They could be a control deck. And maybe a couple of the Mystical Disputes, because we know they're on blue, and no matter what they're doing in blue, Mystical Dispute is good. And maybe go down one of the Ashioks, go down one of the Eldest Reborns, go down maybe one of the Shadow Disguise. But I mean, Jeskai doesn't make me think creature-based deck. I think I need to decide out one more card. Actually, we might be on the 61 card special. But yeah, Jeskai makes me think control. They could be some sort of Jeskai creature-based deck, but we'll see. I think taking out one of the Wraths as, just sort of guesswork is maybe not the worst idea. Okay, alright. We do have not turn 1 Thoughtseize, but we can Thoughtseize and then... Okay, yeah, that's pretty good. We can double Thoughtseize on turn 2. Strip our opponent's hand of anything too important. And we do have removal of all sorts. Liliana to start attacking their hand, and Muyang Ling to control any creatures they drop. Graft Digger's Cage? Okay, I think our opponent maybe should have waited to see what we were doing before scooping, because that's not good against us at all. Well, I guess we take the Ironcrag Pyromancers. Maybe we just take both the Royal Scions. Yeah, we'll take both the Royal Scions. We just can't really attack Royal Scions very well. And Ironcrag Pyromancers, we do just have, like, removal spells to deal with those, so... Land would be the best thing here. We could go land, Mind Stone, Heartless Act. We'd be happy. I think we still Mind Stone. Keep developing our mana. This does give them, like, a free ping in the face from the Ironcrag, potentially. They have, like, land opt here. They hit us for 6, but if we draw a land here, we can kill, okay. So I think we just kill both, right? So we'll wait for them to... They have no mana. We'll just kill both their creatures. And Heartless Act. Kill both their creatures. So we have just completely kind of demolished whatever game plan they had. So they're pretty much starting from scratch here. Okay, another Ironcrag Pyromancer, but we have the Liliana, our key player here, and we have 4 cards in our graveyard, so goodbye to Pyromancer, and we have just completely removal spelled our opponent out of the game here. Wow. Yeah, and our opponent scoops it up. Alright, well that was a fast match. Okay, well that does show kind of the power of this deck. We can play a pretty good control game. Just killed all of our opponent's stuff, made them discard all their planeswalkers, and we just have a lot of angles of attack when it comes to dealing with our opponent's stuff. And just the inevitability of cards like the Eldest Reborn and Elspeth Conquers Death means that we have a really good end game as well. You know, we're just going to be able to deal with pretty much anything. Everything we do is like basically a removal spell plus a threat, and that's just a really powerful place to be. So, yeah, opponent just just lost all their stuff in pretty fast order without really doing much of anything in either game 1 or game 2. So, sweet. Alright, playing some 8 Conq against Ishii. We will go first. We can't really cast. I guess we keep it. This is definitely an iffy hand. We can't cast pretty much anything in our hand, but we do have this Mind Stone to ramp us a bit, and if we draw a blue source, we can cast Narsets. If we draw... Oh, God. Don't take the Mind Stone. Don't do it. No, take one of the Narsets. That Narset's scary, man. It won't let you draw a card. Damn. Oh, no. Well, okay. As far as... Sagoth Triumph is not only a blue source, it's also a black source, so now we can cast everything in our hand, so... Not too bad. Okay, opponent's on the red-black stuff deck. Well, Yu-Gang Ling's not the worst. We can -2 their Dreadhorde Arcanist, which means they can't flash anything back with it, unless they have a way to pump its power and toughness. We can start making 4/4 birds after that. Alright, Stitcher Supplier. Hit a Croxa. Alright. That's going to eventually be a problem. Okay. Do you want to just keep ticking down the Dreadhorde Arcanist so they can't flash back their spells? I think so. Okay, we're going to go... Yeah, we're going to tick down on their Dreadhorde Arcanist. We won't make a bird. Play our Liliana. And start ticking up our Liliana to attack our opponent's hand. This isn't the best deck to attack our opponent's hand because they just have a lot of stuff that does things from the graveyard. But I think we're still going to do it. Because the sooner we're empty-handed, it kind of turns off a lot of their discard spells too. Alright, Village Right, so they can get back the Croxa this turn. But if we draw a land, we can do a pretty great turn ourselves. Alright, Croxa. Goodbye, Yorion. We're going to give up on that, because we have to specifically draw a land for Yorion to be good next turn. And them just hard... I wonder why they didn't just get Croxa back there. It's kind of weird, but alright. Okay, opponent attacks, but they can't flash anything back because it had negative power. So we will... Do we want to kill the Dreadhorde Arcanist? Yeah, we're going to go kill Dreadhorde Arcanist so we can start making birds. Make a bird. Narset. See if we can draw a Thoughtseize. Do we have a Thought... I don't... Wait, we don't have a Thoughtseize in our main deck, do we? Alright. Well, we drew a Liliana, which, I mean, isn't the worst thing. If we need to remove something, that's fine. But it's really something to discard, so we don't have to discard a Discovery Dispersal. Maybe we should have Discovery Dispersal and see if we hit an untapped land so we could do both that and Narset. But doing it this way allows us to have kind of a cushion if our opponent has, you know, gets back this Croak, so we can just discard a Liliana instead of our Discovery Dispersal. And we can just, if they just get back a Croak, so we can just, if we draw a land, we can just cast the Dispersal half of Discovery Dispersal, which will put the Croxa back in their hand and make them discard a card. So that will mean they have used up a lot of their graveyard resources, and just have to, you know, Croxa, once we're empty-handed, isn't that devastating. It's just pinging us for 3. Opponent's thinking about what to do. We do have a clock on him now, too, with a bird, so that's another important part of this, is we have a way to close out the game in 4 turns, so even something kind of temporary, like dispersaling the Croxa back to their hand, is still pretty good, because it means that's one less turn they have to actually do something before we kill them. So, alright, here comes the Croxa. We are going to discard the Liliana. We don't have 6 stuff in the graveyard anyway. Yep. Discard Liliana. Best draw here would be land. Ooh! Oh, that's rough. Oh, we even drew the land. Okay, well, let's see if Let's see if we can Narset our way into a removal spell.
Show your prowess.
Well, kinda. Take the Teferi. Teferi's kinda a removal spell. Get the Teferi. Sure, we'll just tick up on the Kroxa, even though we're gonna be phasing that out anyway. Make our opponent discard a card. Start attacking our opponent's hand. We will attack for 4. Draw a card, discard a card. And then, before our opponent attacks, we will phase out the Kroxa. So, again, we've got them under a pretty quick clock, so every turn we can kind of steal temporarily means this bird is getting closer and closer to killing them. We can make another bird next turn. And if we need to, we're getting to the... Yeah, now we can just minus our Liliana to kill their Kroxa. Okay, opponent scoops it up. They were gonna get their Kroxa back, but then our phase out would fade away and they would lose it. So, opponent is on the red-black discard stuff. Cry the Cranarium doesn't seem too bad, although it's not the best against Kroxa. We could go... Maybe Kaya's pretty good, actually. I guess Heartless Act's actually pretty good, too. And maybe that's... We don't want to over-sideboard. Cry the Cranarium is tempting, but I think we'll wait on that. Maybe bring it in the next time. Go down an Eldest Reborn. They have just Stitcher Suppliers and stuff to sacrifice to it. Go down... Maybe both the Eldest Reborns. Go down... Maybe one of the Shatter the Skies... And... we definitely want to keep our Ashioks. Maybe one of the Elspeths and run it like that. Alright, game 2 against Ishi. And... Yeah, you know what? We're going to keep this. We've got the Ashiok, which just really messes up their deck. Oh, do they always have Lurrus, or did they sideboard into a Lurrus deck? I don't remember seeing Lurrus last game. That'd be kind of cool if they had like a transformational sideboard plan to go into Lurrus. The issue... Okay, I was about to say... The issue about going against this deck is they can always just Thought Seize you to oblivion, so it doesn't... You can't be sure that you're keeping a hand that's actually going to do something. But if we can go turn 2 Discovery up into turn 3 Ashiok and eat their whole graveyard, I feel really good about this hand. Let's see if they thoughts... Okay, they're going to Village Rites. Draw some cards. Fill up their graveyard a bit. Wow! They milled like all of their Thought Seizes. Okay. Oh, and they don't have another land? That's... Well, I mean, that's good for us, but also kind of unlucky with how many cards they've drawn. Graveyard... Graveyard and top of our library. We might just go Kaya here, depending on what exactly they have in their graveyard. Like, they only have Stitcher Supplier and... Oh, okay. Well, Thoughtseize is going to take our Ashiok. I can't imagine it doesn't. But that means we can't go Kaya and kind of more slowly attack their graveyard. Yeah, there goes Ashiok. We'll go Hallowed Fountain. Kaya, and that will be it. This is a deck that's like super graveyard reliant. It's kind of like Dredge in Modern, where if you take away the graveyard, if you have good graveyard hate like Kaya or Ashiok, they're just done. Like they cannot really function without their graveyard. And this is a very powerful deck. That's sort of red-black sacrifice discard Kroxa nonsense deck with young pyromancers and such. It is one of the top decks in the format, but it is completely reliant on his graveyard, and we just we really kind of put the poo-poo to him. So sweet. Kaya would have been sweet. Kaya is one of my favorite planeswalkers, actually. I know she's like really narrow in her design, but she's just fun to play. Like attacking your opponent's graveyard, sort of building up to this ultimate pretty quickly where you can just like drain them for like 10 damage out of nowhere. Just, I don't know, there's like a fun little sub game that's not too oppressive either. I mean, unless you're playing this deck, in which case it's super oppressive. Playing our opponent's deck. So anyway, yeah, 8 Conq taking down one of the more powerful and one of the more commonly played decks in the format, so pretty cool. Sweet. I think with Field of the Dead gone, there's just a lot of stuff in the format right now that are trying to like build around stuff and kind of go after like with bigger permanents, and Elspeth Conquers Death just really shuts those down a lot. The one place we kind of had some trouble was against more aggressive decks, or if we just didn't like draw our stuff on time. So maybe we want to look into like bringing in Ops or something, you know, just something to give ourselves a little bit more consistency, make sure we can hit our land drops. I don't know, it's something worth looking into. But all in all, the deck felt pretty damn good, and like Liliana Waker of the Dead was just an absolute powerhouse. Like, this card is so strong. I think maybe overlooked a bit. This is a little crazy to say, but I think it's pretty close to like Liliana of the Veil power level. Like, this card just feels super strong every time it resolves. Being able to just -3, and I guess because we're a graveyard-based deck, maybe it's better than it would in most other decks, but being able to just -3 and kill anything is just ridiculous. Because if our opponent doesn't have like an immediate follow-up, they're just sort of stuck in this limbo where they kind of have to play things to the board because Liliana's going to make them discard it otherwise. But if they do that, we have, you know, Eldest Reborn, Elspeth Conquers Death. We have these removal spells that are also big finishers, just kind of waiting for them to play anything. But if they don't, then we're just going to be making them discard it. So they're kind of like sandwiched, and we can really kind of like, our opponent just like needs to be able to answer the Liliana right away, or it kind of runs away with the game. And it's just a pretty good finisher on its own. Like, just tick up, deal 3 damage. Doesn't seem like that much of a problem, but it eventually can add up pretty quick. One Liliana and a Mu Yangling making a bird token, we can kill our opponent in like a matter of like 2 or 3 turns. So felt really powerful. That's my big takeaway from this is Liliana Wake of the Dead felt like incredible. Like, I want to play more of this card even. Just feels really good. But all in all, 8 Conq felt pretty good, was pretty interesting, and having 8 of these effects does lead to a pretty pretty good end game. Like, we can beat most every deck when it comes to the end game. It's just like, if they can get in aggressive enough or disrupt us enough, then maybe they can beat us, but it is really hard to outdo 8 copies of Elspeth Conquers Death. So 8 Conq can, I guess, conquer the end game pretty well. So anyway, that's going to wrap it up. I hope you enjoyed watching, and I sure enjoyed playing. This has been 2D, and I'll see you next time.